Hello. Today we are going to discuss the Leontief paradox and other type tests. So basically Leontief paradox is the criticism of HO model. HO model which tells us that if a country is capital abundant country, he will produce capital intensive goods and export it to other countries. And if the country is labor abundant country, he will produce labor intensive goods and export to other countries. But there is also something that you will produce labor intensive goods or capital intensive goods as per their factor input. But will he export or not export? We have already discussed in previous videos. So we are going to discuss the Leontief paradox and other type tests. Basically, Leontief said that America's participation in the division of labor in international trade is based on the specialization in labor intensive rather the capital intensive lines of production. It means he said that the America, who is capital abundant country, they should produce capital intensive goods. But rather than they produce capital intensive goods, they choose to produce labor intensive goods, which is something different from the HM model. So he came forward and tried to explain what is the reason behind it. The not only that USA, also Canada, Japan, India, and they are also countries which are producing the product which are against the factor abundance. This is also a paradox result. And he can that the alternative explanation of to resolve Leontief paradox. What is the alternative explanation to resolve Leontief paradox? They try to resolve Leontief paradox and validate the HO theorem. Though he criticized that it is not true that the countries which have capital abundant will produce capital intensive goods. They criticized it. Yes, Leontief criticized the HO model. But after some time, he tried to resolve the criticism and said that not no, HO model is true. They are basically both five economists who try to explain that beyond the paradox is nothing sort of something misinformation or lack of information. But HMN is totally completely well backed. Not completely to say that, but more valid or more completely well backed like that. First, USA export labor intensive goods as we know, which are beyond the paradox. If you take modern definition instead of traditional definition, and if we are going to discuss what is the traditional definition of labor, what is the modern definition of labor. So we can know that first of all. Modern definition says that the quantity of labor depends upon its productivity. The supply of labor depends upon its productivity. If a country has high labor supply and another country, then forget. I'm telling you that. There is two countries, country A and country B. If country A is USA, country B is India. Country A, USA, is providing high labor supply, but country B, that is India, providing 10 labor supply. As we know that the productivity of American labor is absolute best, is at its best. So the productivity into labor supply is equal to the productivity into labor supply in India will be same. Let's suppose the productivity of American labor is 2 per labor, and in India the productivity of one labor is only 1. So 10 into 1 equal to 10, 5 into 2 equal to 10. So labor supply is equal. This is the modern definition. But traditional definition said that just in terms of absolute sense, like America providing 5 labor supply, India providing 10 labor supply. So India is labor intensive country, America is less labor intensive country, or you can say that capital intensive country. This is the thing. So then labor productivity is more, so labor supply into productivity. This is the modern definition. In USA, one man year productivity is year man productivity for it. You understand that in USA, the labor productivity 1 year is equal to the foreign labor productivity in 3 years. So labor supply in USA is surplus, so he will export labor intensive goods. He tried to prove experiment is true. So he said that if though USA has limited labor supply, but the productivity of its supply is more high than the productivity of others labor in world. So as per this sense, USA is labor intensive country, so he will produce labor intensive goods and export it. But it was criticized by Krenin in 1965 that he said that it is not true that it is the truth that American labor productivity is 3 times more than the world labor productivity. That it is true that American labor productivity is more, but not than 300 percentage more. It will be more than 20-25%. It is said that Lenin. Then new economist, that is Vanek, came. He said that natural resources and capital are complements in production. Means natural resources, you know that coal, petroleum, capital, machine. If we don't use capital, or if we don't use machines, if we don't use manufacturing items, so we cannot use other resources. If we do not use natural resources, then we cannot use capital because there is no output. So they are both are complementing each other. Since USA have less resources, so he tried to conserve the resources. Though USA have less natural resources, so he tried to conserve natural resources and import natural resources intensive products rather than capital intensive products. So, and let's understand this. USA have less natural resources but more capital. So though he had less natural resources, so he tried to import natural resources intensive products. So his natural resources will be increased. Good things to understand. So what we will understand? So here capital intensive goods are exported to the other countries. They are not importing it. The model is proof that the country which is capital important, you will produce capital intensive goods and export it. So he is producing and export it. So here the model is proved. Then another economist, that is Peter Cannon. He said that investment in human. He said that the best capital thing is that invest in human. The investment which is have been done on human and the best capital. So USA export labor intensive goods, obviously, but now the human skill is capital embedded in human beings before our traditional time. We say that the product which is made by the more labor than the more capital and the capital are called labor intensive. But now it is said that the more labor more capital in absolute term. It is said that what is the human skill? So human skill is capital embedded in human beings. Okay? Because we have been invested in human. Okay. So USA exports human capital intensive goods rather labor intensive goods. So USA export human capital intensive goods rather than labor intensive goods because labor, that is skill, is capital. He said that now skill is also a capital because to gain skill we have to invest some capital. So through capital we have got our skill. So through skill we have made our product. So we can say that it is human capital intensive goods, not labor intensive goods. So as you know that USA is capital intensive country and he is exporting human capital intensive goods. So HTML is proved. And that is Leontief methodological procedure. In Leontief methodological procedure, he used some data as more data with econometrics model through which he can prove that HTML model is true. So if you said that many economists around the world try to prove HTML is right because it is right model as per the modern theory. Leontief did not explain the capital labor ratio of the goods which are imported by USA. Rather, he studied the capital labor ratio in the import replacement of goods produced in USA. He said that Leontief did not explain the capital labor ratio of the goods which are imported. The goods which are imported from the other country and the capital and the labor which are needed in that production of the good in other country, they did not explain it. Rather, he stu- rather he studied the capital labor ratio. Rather, he studied that what will be the combination of capital labor of that good, which is substitute of the imported good. Let's suppose the country is USA and country is India. India is exporting a Volvo, a Maruti, a Mahindra car to USA, to America. Okay. The let's suppose that car to produce there is need of high labor and capital. Okay. And in America, the substitute goods of car means let's suppose Volvo, though Volvo is a German company, let's say we have taken it is an American company. If they need 9 capital, 4 labor, 12 capital, or 6 labor, they means Leontief studied in that sense. What is the capital labor ratio in the import replacement goods produced in the USA? This is studied by Leontief. He did not study the capital labor ratio of the goods which are imported. He did not study that what is the combination, what is the capital labor output, capital labor ratio is used to produce that output which is imported. No. He will only study what is the capital labor ratio of the goods which are produced for the replacement of the imported goods. High capital labor ratio in the production of import replacement goods. He said that there is need of high capital labor ratio means to produce a good which are in, produced in another country. There is need of high capital. I will take an example. In India, Mahindra car is produced with 5 labor 10 capital. But in USA, it is need of 15 capital or 6 labor to produce that good. And low capital labor ratio in goods which are imported. So Leontief sheds no light on the capital intensity of the goods which are actually imported in the USA. So he imported goods which need less capital labor ratio so it can be labor intensive import. So that Leontief sheds no light on the capital intensity of the goods. What is the capital are used in that product? They do not focus on that, which are actually imported in the US. So he imported goods which needs less capital labor ratio so it can be labor intensive. Obviously, because capital labor is needed less to produce that product in other country. So America is importing that good in which labor is used in more than the capital. Okay. So it is said that USA is importing labor intensive goods. Understand? Then four is Leontief type paradox found in which country? Japan. I think that Japan is labor intensive country. Canada, capital intensive country. Is Germany and India is also India is labor. I think is Germany is some type of labor and capital mix. Japan is intermediate, not so much capital, not so much labor. Beach. Example: Australia export land in international world. Australia has export land. He has land. Much more land. So he is exporting land in intensive goods. And Brazil is exporting coffee. Then the criticism has been completed. Now we are going to discuss some new modern theory of trade. That is the factor price equalization theorem. Factor price equalization theorem. It implies that after the establishment of trade, The capital labor ratio in the production of a good will be same in both the countries. Well, after the establishment of trade, it implies that after the establishment of trade, the capital labor ratio in the production of a good will be same in both the countries. Let's suppose there are two goods of cloth and silk. The steel is capital industry goods and the uh, capital labor ratio of the product steel in country A and country B will be same after the establishment of trade. We'll understand this in process. But not two goods. Okay, means let's suppose steel needs 5 labor, we get that. Right. High capital, 3 labor. But class doesn't mean that high capital 3 labor. Maybe it will be exchange. Means 6 labor with 4 capital. Like that. Suppose there are two countries, country A and country B, two goods X and Y, two capital production labor and capital which are constant. Before trade, utilization. Country A will be labor surplus country. So labor is abundant and cheap. You will produce labor in this country and export it to the other country. And capital labor ratio is low. Capital is scarce and expensive. Trade labor becomes relatively scarce and price of labor will go up. Here labor is more, okay, and capital is cheap. So labor is more. It means capital labor ratio will be low. After trade, labor becomes relatively scarce in country A because we are producing labor to this country and exporting to other countries. So as now export increases, the labor becomes relatively scarce and price of the labor will go up because the amount will become less. So the demand is high, so labor will go up. Price of the labor. Capital becomes abundant because if he is importing capital into the goods, level of capital increases in that country A and price of capital will go down. Abundant factor becomes scarce and scarce factor becomes abundant. This capital labor ratio increases in country A. In country B, let's suppose capital surplus country, capital labor ratio is high. After trade in specialization, country B specializes in the capital intensive goods and export it. As a result, the capital becomes scarce and cost of capital increases, labor becomes abundant and the price of the labor will go down. Before trade and after trade. Before trade in country A, again before trade in country A, capital labor ratio is low, but after trade is high. Country B, because country A's labor is abundant, but okay, labor is abundant, but after trade, capital is abundant. Country B, country B capital labor is high, and after trade it become low. It will work until it, मतलब price equals, as you know, but will be price equalization theorem says that. So it will work until it equals in the both the country. The capital labor ratio will be equal in both the country. Until that, it will work like that, like that, like that. It will work until it equals in both the country. Factor-based equalization is happening without the movements of the factor, rather due to the intercepted mechanism. So factor-based equalization is happening without the movements of factor, rather due to the intercepted mechanism. Intercepted mechanism is a trade in goods and services is a substitute for labor intensity of capital movement. The goods or services which are imported and exported with each other is that things, not the movement of labor and capital. Let's understand this diagram. Here this is labor, this is capital, this is labor, this is capital. This line will be contract car. These three lines will be contract car. There are three situations. If the contract car is straight line, that means the capital labor ratio of the good or each good in both the country are same. If the contractor curve is labor surplus wala country, okay, the contract curve is linear transmission straight line, then capital is equal in both the goods. At 1 to 3, capital labor is equal for good X and good Y. If the contract curve is non-linear, that is A, B, then good X is capital intensive and KYL is more, good Y is labor intensive, good KYL is less. Labor surplus country take because the more here is the more labor and less capital. There are three propositions. One is straight line, one is AAP. This is capital intensive goods. Means you understand at this point. Here more capital is used, less labor is used. So this is capital intensive goods. Yeah, this is labor intensive goods. Means at this point more labor is used, less capital is used. We have take country A. Here for country B it is capital intensive goods and it is labor and less labor intensive goods. But we have take only one country and this is labor surplus country. Here non-linear TFB, good X labor intensive good less, good Y is capital intensive goods, capital labor is more. So country A is labor intensive country B is capital intensive country. We can understand, we can know from the diagram, above diagram. There is, let's suppose in detail way. There is labor surplus country, that is country A, which is more in labor surplus. As you know, this is capital, this is labor, this is capital, this is labor. Okay. Uh, this is the contract curve of our pink. The pink line is the contract curve. Here is the two isoquant x0 y0. p0 and p0 is the international terms of trade. Here x1 x2. Suppose before trade, country A is producing at the point T, and what is will be the capital labor ratio of T to produce good X and good Y. It will be equal to the angle TAC. So understand the good, the X good to produce, there is need of capital labor ratio input. The capital labor ratio to produce good X will be equal to the angle TAC, and the capital labor ratio which is needed to produce good Y for the country A is the angle TBD. So from this we can understand that is the angle TBD is more than the angle TAC. Means the capital labor ratio of good Y is more to good Y. Means capital is labor is more, means capital is more, labor is less. So from this we can understand that Y is capital intensive goods and good A is labor intensive goods. Okay, here also I have written that before trade we will produce a T, angle TAC less than angle TBD, K by L ratio equal to angle TAC, which is less than K by Ly equal to TBD. So Y is capital intensive goods and X is labor intensive goods. After trade we will specialize in good X because he is labor surplus country and good X is labor intensive goods. So he is absolutely have to produce labor intensive goods items. So he will produce at F, he will produce at F. This here this point. Uh, So now the angle became different. He is specialized in it. So he continues specializing on Odex laboratory country. He will produce at P point. Increasing the production of X increases, the production Y decreases. The angle increases, K by L of X also increases in X, and K by L of Y also increases in Y. Let's see here. The angle increases here. FSC more than angle. This is more angle. Okay. Understand? Here the before the angle is TBD. So this point. So this point. Now the angle is FBD. So this high wala. So capital labor ratio increase in X, capital labor increase in Y. So after trade, capital labor ratio in both the goods production has increased. So after trade, capital labor ratio has increased in both the countries. Let's suppose another case, the country B. The country B is this was capital surplus country. Now the diagram is like that. This is a contract curve. It's producing apprenticeship good as before like that. T A C of good before trade is producing at T point. The capital labor ratio to produce good X is equal to the angle T A C, and the capital labor ratio to produce good Y is the equal to the angle TBD. Here the TBD is less than the angle TAC. So good X is labor intensive goods and good Y is capital intensive goods. As you know that it is a contract case and it is capital surplus country. So he will focus on more on capital intensive goods, that is good Y. So after trade he will produce at point A, and the slope falls down of good X and good Y. It means that it means capital labor ratio of both the good decreases in both the countries. Then we will understand what is price equalization theorem in as a whole. So we decompose or put one diagram by another. Yeah. So before we understand this diagram, we have already understand the each and every diagram in details. Now we are going to discuss the combined diagram. This is capital intensive goods wala country. This is labor intensive goods wala country. This is capital goods wala country. So the pink line is contract curve. This is the contract curve. So it shows that labor intensive. This shows that capital intensive. Okay. As you know that you know the explanation, he will produce at N before trade and at R before trade. After the trade, he will produce at N, and after trade, he will produce at T. The slope changes like before. What we have to understand, what is the price equalization theorem, how the capital labor ratio of both the goods will be, the good will be equal in the both the country. Here after trade, the country B, country A is producing at point N and country B is producing at point T. Here the slope means T A E, means the slope T A E will be equal to the slope MFZ. The slope DAE will be equal to the slope MFZ. So we said that good X is apprentice good both country, ITV, all factor prices are at all at factor prices. Production function same for both the country. For some product, regardless factor ambulance factor differences. hierarchy country produce at A and B at is R at the factor price different achieve. So this is M and R is equal to rate. After rate, remember at N and T. After trade, country A and country B trade. Equalization factor base. The pre-trade at country A produces at point M capital labor ratio equal to angle ME and capital labor ratio Y angle MXG. Trade after trade capital labor ratio to produce X equal to angle NAE and capital labor ratio of Y is equal to angle NRG. So this is the country A. Now we are going to discuss the country B, pre-trade and trade. Before period will produce at point R, after trade will produce at T, the angles goes down, capital level is X equal to T, capital X equal to angle T at T. So this sign is not L, this sign is angle. This is the sign of angle. Okay, sign of angle. Capital level is Y equal to L at D, capital level is Y equal to angle TCD, capital level of X equal to angle TAE. So after trade both the country establishing trade they are between us. Capital level of X to produce X equal to angle NAE in country A and capital angle TAE in country B. So since NAE and TAE is equal, so factor price ratio in X production of X will be equal in between two countries. So same for both right. You can say that the capital level ratio of the produce Y after trade this is called TCD and the after trade for the country A capital level ratio is equal to angle NFG. So NFG and TCD angle is equal. So factor price ratio in production of Y is equalized in between two countries. So international trade brings about equalization of factor price, factor product prices. Not only it brings equalization in the factor price, but also bring equalization in the product prices. There are some obstacles which we are going to discuss today. So what is the obstacle that this fast assumption is a complete period. Complete period means there is no absolute tariff, there is no transportation cost like that. But in real case it is not possible of free trade. In international trade to practical or incomplete specialization, no complete specialization, so rule out the complete factorization. Complete factorization it is not true that here is complete factorization. You can say that it is partial or incomplete specialization, not complete. It is based on DRS with perfect competition things. But in real, the market is not perfect competition, it is an other situation perfect competition. The market may be monopolistically perfect and more realistic market with some product have increasing industrial. For a complete factor of then 4 point, the complete factor of price equalization, numbers of factors should not exceed the number of products. For the complete factor equalization, the number of factors not based on the products. No, there is two possible only. Point two, there is two countries, there is two factor production, there is two board. Factor supply is fixed. It will be taken as assumption, but it is not true that factor supply is fixed. This is unrealistic, and because supply is labor capital constantly changing over time. Thank you for this.